Hello everyone, and welcome back to History of the Ancient World. Today we're journeying back in time to ancient Greece, not to witness epic battles or marvel at grand temples, but to explore the minds of the thinkers who laid the very foundations of Western thought. We're talking about the Greek philosophers, the original trailblazers of logic, ethics, and science. So, what was happening in Greece that created such a fertile ground for philosophy? Picture this. It's the 6th century BCE. Greek city-states, or poleis, are bustling centers of trade and culture. People from different lands are exchanging goods, but more importantly, they're exchanging ideas. In this vibrant, competitive environment, old myths and religious explanations for how the world works started to feel, well, a bit unsatisfying for some. A new kind of thinker emerged, one who wasn't content with just accepting because the gods said so as an answer. They wanted to understand the world through reason and observation. These were the pre-Socratics. Let's start in the coastal city of Miletus in modern-day Turkey. Here we meet Thales, often called the very first philosopher. Thales looked at the world around him and asked a groundbreaking question. What is everything made of? Think about it. Instead of attributing creation to a divine story, he sought a single, natural substance that underlies all of reality. His answer? Water. He observed that water is essential for life. It can be a solid, a liquid, or a gas. Was he right? No, not really. But that's not the point. The revolutionary part was the question itself. He was the first to propose that the universe could be understood in natural terms. Following Thales were his students, Anaximander and Anaximenes. Anaximander took it a step further. He thought if everything came from one of the known elements, like water or fire, that element would have dominated the others by now. So he proposed something he called the apeiron, which means the boundless or the infinite. This was an abstract, undefined substance from which all things originate and to which they all return. It was a huge intellectual leap, moving from a concrete element to a purely conceptual one. Then came Anaximenes, who suggested that air was the fundamental substance, arguing it could become fire when thinned out, or wind, clouds, water, and even earth as it became more condensed. These Milesian thinkers set the stage, shifting the focus from mythos to logos, from story to reason. But not all pre-Socratics were focused on what the world was made of. Over in Italy, another giant was making waves. Pythagoras. Yes, the same Pythagoras from your high school math class. For him and his followers, the universe wasn't made of a physical substance, but of numbers. They saw mathematical relationships in music, in the cosmos, in everything. They believed that reality itself was governed by numerical harmony. The Pythagoreans were more than just a school of thought. They were a community, almost a brotherhood, with strict rules for living, believing that through a life of discipline and intellectual pursuit, the soul could be purified. Now let's talk about two philosophers who seem to be in direct opposition, Heraclitus and Parmenides. Heraclitus of Ephesus was a mysterious, somewhat grumpy figure who famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." What he meant was that everything is in a constant state of flux, of change. The only constant for Heraclitus is change itself, driven by a cosmic tension between opposites, which he called logos. On the other side of the debate was Parmenides. He argued the exact opposite. He claimed that change is an illusion. Through pure logic, he concluded that what is simply is. It cannot come from nothing, and it cannot become nothing. It must be eternal, unchanging, and whole. All the change we see with our senses is just a trick of perception. This created a major philosophical crisis. How do you reconcile what your senses tell you, that things change, with what logic seems to prove, that they can't? This brings us to the golden age of Athens and the three most famous names in all of philosophy: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates is a fascinating figure because he never wrote anything down. Everything we know about him comes from the writings of his students, most notably Plato. Socrates roamed the streets of Athens, not lecturing, but questioning. He would approach powerful politicians, famous poets, and skilled craftsmen and start a conversation, asking them simple-sounding questions like what is justice or what is courage. Through his persistent logical questioning, now known as the Socratic method, he would reveal that these experts didn't really know what they were talking about. His goal wasn't to humiliate them, but to show them and himself the limits of their own knowledge. His famous motto was, "I know that I know nothing." This relentless questioning of authority and tradition eventually got him into trouble. He was accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, and was sentenced to death. He accepted his fate calmly, becoming a martyr for the pursuit of truth. After Socrates' death, his most brilliant student Plato was devastated. He channeled his energy into creating a philosophical system that would honor his master's legacy. Plato founded a school called the Academy, which was essentially the world's first university. At the heart of Plato's philosophy is his theory of forms. He agreed with Parmenides that our sensory world is deceptive and ever-changing. But he also believed there was a higher, truer reality, the world of forms. For every object or concept in our world, a chair, beauty, justice, there is a perfect, eternal, and unchanging form of that thing in this higher realm. The chairs we see are just imperfect copies of the perfect form of chairness. Plato believed that the philosopher's job is to use reason to move beyond the shadows of our world and grasp the true reality of the forms. And who was Plato's most famous student? None other than Aristotle. Aristotle spent 20 years at Plato's academy before starting his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato, who was fascinated with the abstract world of forms, Aristotle was a man of this world. He was an empiricist, meaning he believed knowledge comes from experience and observation of the world around us. He was like a one-man research institute, studying everything from biology and physics to ethics and politics. He catalogued hundreds of animal species, analyzed different forms of government, and invented the field of formal logic. Where Plato looked up to the heavens for truth, Aristotle looked down at the earth. He believed that the form of a thing wasn't in some other realm, but right here within the object itself. For Aristotle, the goal of life was eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or human flourishing, which you could achieve by living a life of virtue and reason. The legacy of these three thinkers is simply immeasurable. The dialogue between Plato's idealism and Aristotle's empiricism has shaped Western thought for over 2 millennia. Every time you ask why, every time you try to use logic to solve a problem, every time you think about how to live a good life, you are walking in the footsteps of these ancient Greek giants. They taught us not what to think, but how to think. They gave us the tools to question, to analyze, and to understand our world and our place in it. From the first spark of curiosity in Thales to the encyclopedic mind of Aristotle, the journey of Greek philosophy is a testament to the power of the human mind to seek truth. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the minds of the Greek philosophers. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the ancient world. See you next time.